Microphone check 1, 2. Well, hello. Welcome to another Sleuth Intuition Live. Today we will be going over the sequence of events regarding the Delphi murders as recent as August 19th through November 7th, which was yesterday. Sensei Wackadoodle, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Good to see all of you here. Room filled up quickly, so we will get started quickly. That's a good tune. Yes, Bossy, hello. Yeah, that piqued my curiosity. I pulled up that video, slowed it down, and tried to zoom in and clear up the image. It looks like some kind of a crossword puzzle, but there could be something else hidden within there. I don't know. Maybe that's how these guys communicate. Maybe they fill out a bunch of information on a crossword puzzle and just hand it off to another person. Don't quote me on that. He could have just been scared. He could be living in fear. He knows one day one day law enforcement's going to creep up on him, or somebody's going to recognize him or something. He's probably afraid. So when he saw somebody sneaking up on him, he was like, oh shit. Hey, Susan, I'm having a great day. Took a walk this morning, had a nice shower, 2 cups of coffee. Yeah. Hello, Heather. Hey, Jill. Jules. Hey, Ophelia, good to see you. Yep, it's always good to see you. Thank you for being here. Hey, it's Radar. Good to see you. D. Olivia. Glinda Upland. Thanks. I appreciate that, Glinda. Lisa. Kimmy. Psych 101. Yeah, I shared on my community page. Somebody on YouTube posted a video with a recorded call. Apparently, somebody that works in that prison. Um, they said they cleaned out the observation cell. It's basically a suicide watch cell. You know, that way they can see if anybody's going to either anybody coming and going. Kind of seems like a Epstein type situation. But according to this phone call, like they're tormenting this guy and he just sleeps all day long. That's crazy. I wonder if he was attacked while he was in Carroll County. We're like, damn, we got to get this guy out of here. Because, I mean, any inmate, you know, who attacks him is in there. That's currency. You know, it's going to up his status. It's a promotion in many ways. Glinda says, how did they not get covered in blood? What's your opinion? Who not get covered in blood? I think they were all covered in blood. Badger says, I think BG had extra clothes on under his clothes. He seemed overdressed. Yeah, he did. And if he pre-planned this, who knows? You know, he could have a change of clothes on. He could have gloves hidden. You know, you never know. What's up, Sylvia? Joseph Ash, hello. Alan is pleading not guilty. He can't flip on TK yet. I'm telling you from the beginning, we have nothing solid connecting Tony Klein to any of this, you know, other than it's not motive. It's just he seems capable of doing it. Or something like that. Echo? You guys are getting an echo? What? Sensei says, what if there's someone in there that they think either might testify against the other? They're in some weird pedal ring. Just a thought. Could be. All right. So I somewhat caught up on chat. Copper Horse says, I wonder if Richard Allen made copies of the pictures of Libby's funeral. I guarantee he did. I bet you he did. Heather Swenson says, do you think the murder location was pre-chosen? Yeah, if this was a pre-planned murder, definitely. And Kegan could have been used for that specific reason. Kegan Klein could have been a tool for a killer. And who knows, maybe Kegan Klein has been a tool for a lot of sexual offenders, you know, not just in Indiana. You know, he stalks these girls. He's been stalking girls and catfishing girls since 2014 all over Indiana. So who knows? Eventually he's going to make these strange contacts. You know, hand it over, you know, just hand me over this information. Then these pedals can continue to victimize them or continue to. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, Kimmy. That's what I heard. I don't know what to make of that video. I shared it. It's interesting, you know. I don't I don't see anything right off the bat that would make it seem fake. Yep, that's true, bad girl. So that they can relive that day. That's empowering to them, and could have been the reason that they were talking about the case, the motivation being about power. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys all had a chance to read Becky Patty's. I think she posted it on Facebook. It was this long post, and she was kind of explaining her position on that petition that's been circulating. Definitely worth a read. I think the Criming Shame YouTube channel did a video on it actually yesterday. That's where I was able to read it. Yeah, it sounds like they're very extreme conditions. Solitary confinement, suicide watch. Yeah, it sounds extreme to me. Yeah, man. I hate how twisted and evil it is, but I mean, I got a little bit of pleasure out of that. Humans can just be so vicious. All right, let's get started. So I broke this down into 8 videos. We're basically going to start on August 19th, and that's when Kegan was released into ISP custody and began negotiations with investigators. August 19th of 2022.
Tonight, we've learned the man connected to the Delphi murders through a fake social media profile was taken out of jail to meet with Indiana State Police investigators.
Yeah, we're talking about Kegan Klein, who faces charges of child pornography and exploitation that are separate from the Delphi murders of Libby German and Abby Williams.
And Rich, he joins us now. You've actually been following this story since it first broke on the fake Anthony Schatz profile.
Right. Now, Kegan Klein has never been charged in the Delphi murders, but Klein has been held in the Miami County Jail for 2 years now, awaiting trial on 30 charges involving child pornography.
I'm going to respond to this comment here by Psych 101. It says, "Hey, Sleuth, if he is in solitary confinement, no other prisoners would know what he's doing." Yeah, I think the phone call that I was referring to that was recorded, I think it was with an employee of that prison. And I think he had inside information about who was cleaning the cell, who they were expecting, and things like that. So this wouldn't have been a prisoner relaying this information. It would have been somebody that was employed or somehow working at that prison, is my understanding.
Court records unsealed this week show the prosecutor and Klein's attorney agreed to have him released into the temporary custody of Indiana State Police. The court granted that request last Friday. Klein was ordered returned to the Miami County Jail afterward. Now, we don't know why state police investigators wanted to meet with Klein outside of the jail or where they took him. But Klein's attorney also asked for and received another delay in the court proceedings. The attorney told the judge that the parties are currently engaged in negotiations. Now, Klein faces 30 charges involving child pornography and exploitation. And in court records, Klein admitted to creating the social media profile Anthony Schatz to meet underage girls and receive sexually explicit photos. Investigators say the person behind the fake profile was one of the last to communicate with Libby German before her death. Libby and Abby's bodies were found near a trail in Delphi back on February 14, 2017. And Klein's next court date is coming up on October. It's pushed back now 7 weeks to October 20th. The jury trial is still set for January. But again, this is not directly related to the murders.
Okay.
All right. So something tells me this is what got the ball rolling. Okay. So August 19th is basically when I set off a whole chain of events, like dominoes. So August 19th, Kegan is released into ISP custody and begins negotiations. August 22nd is when the search begins.
Us in, it's 11, and we want to begin with these breaking new details emerging tonight as Indiana State Police search a river near the home of Kegan Klein. This is the man in jail on charges of child porn and exploitation. He also admitted to creating the Anthony Schatz catfish profile, which communicated with Libby German before the Delphi murders. Now, today, state police started a second week of searching the Wabash River under the Kelly Avenue Bridge in Peru. Divers are leaving markers there, tracking their progress, but they won't say what they're looking for. Now, we do know Klein's home is just minutes from the search site, and state police took Klein out of jail just 5 days ago to meet with investigators. Tonight, we heard from the witnesses who've been watching the teams as they searched.
I saw them. They started basically on the south side, and there was about 8 guys, and they were all dressed in the exact same wetsuits.
That Klein has never been named a suspect in the Delphi murders, and he's actively denied any involvement in the case. Tonight, he's currently behind bars on those charges of child porn and exploitation.
Indiana State Police searching the Wabash River in Peru. The search started 5 weeks ago. The search is believed to be connected to Kegan Klein and the weapon used in the Delphi murders. ITMH's Richard Essex has this story for us.
Kegan Klein was taken out of jail a couple weeks ago. He is facing 30 child porn-related charges for using a fake social media account, Anthony Schatz. He used that account to get sexual images from underage girls. Now, police say that account may be linked to the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German.
It just seems like there's a lot more attention being given to that side of the bridge.
Danny Gill says he is on this bridge over the Wabash River a couple times a week. He is documenting the search of the river on his YouTube channel called Famously Unfamous. Gill says over the past 5 weeks, a team of 10 to 15 people from state police have meticulously searched the river. The search started on the west side of the Nickel Plate Bridge and has progressed about 400 yards past. The searchers have placed poles topped with red flags as they move along the river.
Right where you're standing, they set up a tripod, like a surveyor's tripod, and had a guy standing out with like a surveyor stick, and they marked out each little area.
So
and
they've surveyed it, right?
They've surveyed it, yes. Took pictures, for crime scene probably.
That was on September 2nd, and later that same day, he did capture video of state police using a drone over the river. Then earlier this week, more eyes in the sky.
Yesterday, a state police helicopter did fly over. It did, I don't know if it was a figure 8 or 2 circles, and then it headed straight south. And I did look it up on Flight Tracker, and it was registered Indiana State Police.
Over the past couple of weeks, the searchers have raked the ground on both sides of the river. On the north side of the bank, under the bridge, there's a pile of metal and other objects collected during the search. Every day, weather permitting, the team from state police gather in a parking lot near the river, change into wetsuits, and get into the river. We have seen a few people with metal detectors working in various parts of the river, but most of the searching is done on their hands and knees.
I have not seen them bring anything out as far as evidence, but they carry buckets and things like that with them, so I'm sure that it's not something that you just grab and then go run into the bank with.
The search began around August 19th. That's the same time that court records show Kegan Klein was released to the custody of state police. In the order originally sealed to the public, it did not specify the exact reason, and state police would not comment on why to ITMate. 2 court filings last month by Klein's lawyer say that he is exploring other legal options and is in negotiation with the prosecutor. But the Murder Sheet podcast reports Klein was present for his search of the river. I went to Klein's father's house, it is not far from the bridge, hoping that he might share some insight on the search. No one answered the door. I have reached out to Klein's lawyer, and he has not responded to my calls. In Indianapolis, Richard Essex, Wish TV.
Okay. Now you heard what he said. Now let's take a close look at this. Timeline here, August 19th. Kegan released into ISP custody. Official documents presented that state he's engaged in negotiations with investigators. 2 days later, they begin searching the Wabash River. Okay. So from August 22nd up until September 28th, they searched that river. And it wasn't until the 28th that they admitted that they were even searching it. So let's take a look at some of this coverage here.
5-week search of the Wabash River in Miami County.
Tonight, police confirmed that the search is over, but the big question still looms. Is it connected to the murders of Abby and Libby in Delphi? ITMate's Richard Essex is on the case for us again tonight.
A spokesperson for the Indiana State Police told me that the search of the Wabash River has concluded. This is the first time the state police has actually acknowledged that they were searching, but they wouldn't say what they were looking for. Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee of the podcast Murder Sheet are following every development related to the murder of Libby German and Abby Williams. It is believed the exhaustive search of the Wabash River in Peru is related to that case. The search began August 19th. The same day, a court allowed Indiana State Police to take custody of Kegan Klein as suspect in the Anthony Schatz child porn case that is linked to the Delphi murders.
Obviously, Indiana State Police did not go on the record saying that, but we had sources who did tell us that it was Delphi related.
The progress of the search is marked by the team with poles and stakes driven into the river bottom. The lion's share of the search was conducted by hand. We did see a few people with metal detectors. Under the bridge, we did see a pile of metal and other objects collected by the team, but still no explanation from state police what they were looking for or if they found anything.
We feel the Indiana State Police, not just in the terms of this water search, but throughout the whole Delphi investigation, have poured almost unlimited amounts of resources into the case. And one of the things that got us interested in this case was we believe the Indiana State Police, like any other governmental agency, needs to be held accountable to the people of Indiana.
I reached out to Kegan Klein's lawyer with a number of questions concerning the search. He responded with, "Thank you for the email, Richard. I have no comment at this time." As of today, police have not announced any arrests associated with the Delphi murders. Kegan Klein is due in court in late October on 30 child pornography charges in Indianapolis.
Okay. So we have August 19th. Kegan is released into Indiana State Police custody. Negotiations begin. 2 days later, they begin searching the Wabash River. 5 weeks later, on September 28th, the search concludes. October 13th, the search of Richard Allen's home begins, almost exactly 2 weeks later. Now, I was trying to figure out what would cause a 2-week delay. And the best thing that I could come up with is that they were looking through the evidence that was found. And this is the video I thought could best describe where my thoughts are and what I think happened.
Seems incomprehensible that a cell phone or even its mangled parts would be intact enough to extract video. And while questions remain about whether those purported images taken moments before the crash are authentic,
Thank you,
we
Ms.
wanted to find
Doglover.
out if such a discovery would even be
We'll take a look.
possible.
Anything that stores digital data we can recover.
The recovery of cell phone video from a crash site begins in a place like this.
I'm going to pop off this ribbon cable, give it back.
We're at a company called Drive Savers just north of San Francisco, one of the leading data recovery centers in the world, whose clients include Apple and the federal government. Here, lab workers say they can extract data from practically any device, no matter how badly damaged.
On this one, we got text messages, contacts.
Like this phone that got run over twice by a car, or this camera sitting in the bottom of an ocean for at least a year.
Well, what most customers don't understand is that everything that's important to them as far as the data lives on primarily one chip or a couple of chips inside of the device. And that's NAND flash. That's the type of technology that stores data in these mobile devices.
And NAND flash, he says, is extremely durable.
In most cases, does that chip survive a major crash?
It does, in fact. Even if a device is burnt or smashed or crushed or wet, if we can extract that one chip or set of chips, we're going to be able to get the user data out of it.
Earlier in the day, I took some video of the Golden Gate Bridge. And while my phone wasn't destroyed, the principles of extracting data remain the same. Getting to the chip buried deep in the phone and putting it in a special machine to extract those images. It can be a little more complex, but this is what investigators in France are likely doing with any chips they recover from the phones.
Every one of those devices has got some user's data on it, and those phones and tablets, as we've already heard in the media, were probably recording the unfortunate last minutes of those people's lives. And I would guess that most of that data is recoverable.
All right. So I looked up how long it possibly could take, anywhere between 5 and 2 weeks to recover that data, depending on who they sent it to. Last time they used Celebrite. I'm assuming that's who they used this time. So I'm not sure. But there's about a 2-week turnaround here if we're to assume what they found was related to Richard Allen. So once again, August 19th, Kegan is released into ISP custody, begins negotiations. This is all documented. So none of this is speculation. August 22nd, the search begins. 5 weeks later, September 28th, the search concludes. October 13th, the search of Richard Allen's home, almost exactly 2 weeks later. So if we're to think or to assume they found something in the Wabash River, it's about the right time for them to recover information that was leading directly to him. So let's take a look at this HLN. This is the back end of, I think, about a 40-minute special. This was put out, I think, maybe Saturday or Friday night. Basically, they announced the arrest on the 28th. So this may have been from the 28th or the 29th.
That's right, Susan. I was able to speak with some of the neighbors of Richard Allen. They've lived near him for several years. They were familiar with him but didn't know him well. But on Thursday, October 13th, they noticed a lot of activity outside his house, a lot of cars that appeared to them to be unmarked law enforcement vehicles, a lot of men not in law enforcement uniforms but in suits and khaki pants, all arriving at the house just before noon. They asked Richard and his wife to exit the home and to remain outside of the home throughout the day. They weren't allowed back into the home until around 11 p.m. that night. During that time, Richard stood outside. His wife sat in a van. He stood outside that van for several hours. One of the photos shows that we've exclusively obtained. Another photo shows him sitting in the van with his wife.
Okay. So what I think happened is whatever they found in the Wabash River in Peru on the 28th, I think it gave them enough cause to detain him and also maybe do. I'm not sure what would cause them, because I don't think they began the search right away. I think they held him, so they had enough to detain him. Maybe suspicion of murder, but I'm not sure what gave them the probable cause. I'm wondering if it's information that was found on a phone, possibly, along with confirmation of what Kegan was most likely telling law enforcement. He went down there and Murder Sheet said, yeah, Kegan went down there to the river and was probably directing them like, yeah, so who knows, maybe when they left, Richard Allen left with them. He's like, I got to go with you guys, like, get me out of here. I'll figure out, where I go from there. But on the way, to maybe drop him off somewhere, he said, take me by the river. We just don't know. But I mean, this timeline is just adding up 100%.
With the passenger door open for another several hours. At some point, as it was starting to get dark out, these neighbors noticed that the Carroll County Sheriff's Chief Deputy Tony Liggett arrived. He had a piece of paper with him. He showed it to Richard Allen, and at that point, a tow truck arrived and started taking the car away, one of the cars away, not the one he'd been sitting in, but a car that the neighbors recognized as one that he routinely used. And they began a search inside the house and also in the yard using some sort of a device, perhaps like a metal detector or something like that, to search a flower bed and also an area around a shed. They did dig around the shed, some small areas. They took a lot of photos in the shed. The neighbors also watched through binoculars as officers came out of the house carrying several bundles of cloth, dark cloth, perhaps clothing, a Macy's shopping bag, a shoebox, and a stack of books, small books.
Wow.
And at this point, we don't know what any of that means for the investigation. That is something that I'm sure investigators have spent the last several weeks looking for, whatever evidence perhaps led them to today. And the neighbors said that they had known him for several years, and he was basically, there was nothing special about him. He lived.
To you, our first speaker, Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter. Give me just a second here. Seldom do I have prepared remarks, but today is different because I do not want there to be any confusion or ambiguity with what I will say. Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation. First, I'd like to speak directly to Anna, Mike, Becky, Kelsey, your extended families, along with the entire Delphi community that certainly has grown and now includes our nation and even many countries around the world. I am proud to report to you that today, actually last Friday, was the day. And an arrest has been made.
All right, there's one piece of this information I wanted to talk about. So August 19th, Kegan is in ISP custody, begin negotiating. August 22nd, search begins. September 28th concludes. October 13th, search of Richard Allen's home begins. Okay, now why wasn't there an arrest until the 28th? Once again, we have about a 2-week period from the point from the search to when they made the arrest. So I'm assuming they found some more, I'm going to say digital evidence that needed to be reviewed, or possibly something they needed to test in a laboratory that takes, has somewhat of a rollover. So the 28th was the date they made the arrest. And I'm thinking they had their eyes on this guy for some time. Since 2019, I'm thinking he was on their radar. And they didn't want to make the arrest until they were 100% sure, because of all of the backlash that we've been seeing. If you're not 100% that you can prove this in court, something like that could really damage that case.
Thanks to literally hundreds of media outlets that have been steadfast in reporting and keeping the memories of Abby and Libby front and center. Many of you in the room have developed relationships with me personally, and I always have a personal perspective, and today's no different. But from a very personal perspective, you all have provided inspiration and support, even while oftentimes frustrated with us and me. You continue to encourage the efforts and you too believe that one day we would all be here participating and sharing this news. To the entire law enforcement community, which includes all local, state, and federal agencies, which are far too many to specifically mention today, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to continue a very methodical and committed approach to ensure that if any other person had any involvement in these murders in any way, that person or persons will be held accountable. Since the murders of Abby and Libby 2,086 days ago, the daily investigative team has worked tirelessly and is certainly worthy of mention today. Specifically, Sheriff Linsonby, Sheriff of Carroll County, Detectives Tony Liggett, Detective retired Kevin Hammond, former Delphi chief and now the prosecutor's investigator Steve Mullins, State Police First Sergeant Jerry Holman, Detectives Jay Harper, Dave Vito, and Brian Harshman, along with members of the United States Marshal Service, specifically Agent Jeremy Clinton and Agent Bill Colfers. With them today is Dan McClain, U.S. Marshal, appointed U.S. Marshal. Our state police analysts, our scientists from many different disciplines within our laboratory division, Mrs. Kathy Shank, for your incredible dedication to detail, and to so many others that I know I've missed. I really believe that Abby and Libby would be proud of you for standing strong, even in the face of immense pressure and perpetual criticism. Some of these individuals have postponed retirement, passed on promotional opportunity, have dedicated personal time away from their families, given up nights, weekends, and holidays, all while in the pursuit of accountability for Abby and Libby. I know that today's announcement will not diminish your resolve, and I hope you have found just a bit of peace in this most complicated world. This is really important. While I know you are all expecting final details today concerning this arrest, today is not that day. Today's not that day. This investigation is far from complete, and we will not jeopardize its integrity by releasing or discussing documents or information before the appropriate time. Prosecutor Nick McClellan, of course, will share additional information about what we can and cannot say, and also explain to you why the probable cause affidavit is temporarily sealed by the court and not available. And by the way, he has been a tremendous asset to this team. I'm yet again asking you for your patience and please your understanding while our system of due process works. Also remember that all persons arrested are presumed innocent. All persons arrested are presumed innocent. You all will have an innate desire to subjectively interpret and then report what you think. We in the law enforcement realm cannot, and you should never allow us to, talk about what we think.
All right, let's rewind this part here. It seems like a lot of people out there aren't clear on this.
About what we can and cannot say, and also explain to you why the probable cause affidavit is temporarily sealed by the court and not available. And by the way, he has been a tremendous asset to this team. I'm yet again asking you for your patience and please your understanding while our system of due process works. Also remember that all persons arrested are presumed innocent. All persons arrested are presumed innocent. You all will have an innate desire to subjectively interpret and then report what you think.
Right there.
We in the law enforcement realm cannot
subjectively interpret.
talk about what we think concerning facts, but rather discuss and share at the right time what it is we know. The time will come when additional details can be released. But again, today is not that on our planet. The prosecutor has been very clear with law enforcement about what his expectations are, about what can and cannot be released, shared, or discussed. So we will, of course, comply. If you choose to be critical of our silence, be critical of me, not the front line. These are the folks that have committed their entire lives to a successful conclusion. In other words, a guilty verdict.
Thought he almost said collusion there for a moment.
As we move to the next phase of this investigation, I will continue to offer all resources that the ISP has to not only the investigative team I anticipate growing, but also to Prosecutor McClelland as we prepare for the coming months. Again, Nick has been very resolute and very clear, and I'm most grateful for his leadership. And it's going to be really important as we move forward. Please continue offering tips that you would like to share. The many avenues to report will remain open and will be available to all. Please continue doing that. In closing,
really quick before I forget. So the question in regards to the cartel and this guy being able to purchase a home for so much money, I don't know where that money comes from. I don't know all of that information yet. But I mean, and this is a stretch, but I mean, what if he's like some kind of low-end hitman or something? You know, people who screw up in the CSAM business, you know, maybe they need somebody to come in and protect the bunch or the rest of the group. Just thinking out loud.
I stand before you in this church and very place where we held our first briefing nearly 6 years ago, and just hours after the murders of Abby and Libby. Right here. Pulling in today, I wasn't really sure what emotion I would experience. But peace came over me. And I didn't expect that to happen. And I hope all of you, with all the different responsibilities you have from around the planet today, have felt some of that as well. But remember, we're not done. I think what we all have experienced proves that together there's nothing we cannot do. But more importantly, giving of ourselves, all of us, giving of ourselves matters more than what we could ever receive. Abby and Libby, though in death, have had a profound effect on so many of us, on how we live, and as importantly, who we all should be. I would now like to introduce to you my
because of time, we will not be able to play the full presser, but we will recap this. We got one more video, and then we'll talk for about 10 minutes about it, and you guys can kind of give your opinion on today's topic. So August 19th, Kegan is released into ISP custody and begins negotiating with Indiana State Police. 2 days later, they begin searching the Wabash River. 5 weeks from that date, which is September 28th, the search concludes. Exactly 2 weeks from that date, October 13th, search of Richard Allen's home begins. 2 weeks from that date, almost to the day, they arrest Richard Allen. They also announced that they will be holding a press conference October 31st. They hold the press conference. Now that leads us to yesterday, which was November 7th, and they officially dropped 5 charges for Kegan Klein.
Approved a request to drop some of the child pornography charges against Kegan Klein. He's the man police say collected sexual videos and images of underage girls using the Anthony Schatz social media profile, the profile connected to the Delphi murders. Prosecutors asked last week to drop 5 counts, saying the charges could not be proven beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. Klein still faces 25 other charges related to child pornography. His trial is set to begin in January.
All right. What do you guys think? I mean, all of this happened starting August 19th, and Kegan was right there. They were searching. It's like dominoes. Is it possible that it's not connected and there was just something random that took place that led to Richard Allen? Yeah, that's possible. But I don't believe so. And I also don't believe that the prosecutor would ask them to seal those documents unless he had a good reason like that. Because, I mean, it's only going to bring more attention to himself by doing something like that. SB 74 says most likely reason for dropping those counts is that they cannot identify the victim nor prove age. Yep. But they also said that we know that you're not the only one using this account. We know there's other people. So, I mean, if you're going to just flat out say that, and along the way, they found out that, hey, let's say Richard Allen was using some of this information. I don't know. They could potentially be related. I don't know. Did they go out and party? The night before? Were they hanging out together? Were they both messaging the girls the night before? And he asked, maybe Kegan and a buddy of his, hey, can you take me home? Just drop me off here, drop me off at the gas station right here. And for whatever reason, he goes and he meets the girls. It could be something like that. Very simple. Armchair Detective says there was a theory that Ron Logan was connected with KK or perhaps Richard Allen. What does everyone think? Too far-fetched? I don't think it's too far-fetched. I mean, the bodies were found on his property and we don't know the connection. I wouldn't say that's far-fetched, but I also don't think that there's anything pointing in that direction. Well, I wouldn't say anything. I just think some of the information that was listed in the Ron Logan probable cause affidavit is just being misinterpreted, or actually it's being received the way it was designed to be received. Was those probable causes are often designed to be sold. They're trying to sell them, trying to sell an idea to a judge, and a judge is very open to buying what's in the probable cause affidavit if he can find that probable cause. Be happy to. Hey, Cold Truth. If the judge sentences him to the Indiana Advisory Guideline on all charges, he would be looking at 77 years. Those 5 charges would take off 7 years. Doesn't seem like a good deal. Kegan told him he would be at the bridge, maybe. Yeah, and I mean, they could have been hanging out the night before. Who knows what was going on over there. ended up on Country Club Road. Maybe that's where Kegan woke up. No, it had to have been the Canal Street address. They logged in and out of the Anthony shots at 8 a.m. So, I mean, what if they were hanging out and there was some type of communication at that point, and then he just asked for a ride home, maybe, drop me off at the Marathon gas station, and then goes on to, to commit the crime. And Kegan Klein's watching the video going like, oh shit, there's Richard Allen. That's the guy we were just with. So, but who knows? Without information, all we're left with is speculation. But, I mean, it's clear as day. August 19th, Kegan was released and begins negotiations. 2 days later, they start searching the river. 5 weeks later, they stop. 2 weeks from that day, they search Richard Allen's home. 2 weeks from that day, they make an arrest and announce a presser. And then 7 days after the presser, Kegan gets some charges dropped. Is it all coincidence? Possibly. I don't think so. I think they're connected. I think they needed to confirm what Kegan was telling them, and that was by finding physical evidence. I think they needed to analyze that evidence. When they analyzed it, they found that Richard Allen may have been connected some way. I'm thinking GPS information, possibly. Maybe an email. Something along those lines that would connect him or verify what Kegan was saying was true. That was enough to detain him, search the home, and then once they were able to analyze whatever was found at the home and verify that they in fact had their man, or at least one of them, they made the arrest. I mean, that's what the timeline says to me. So if you're asking me, I don't know for sure, and there's a possibility that they're not connected. Could be a coincidence, but I don't think so. I think this timeline that we went over today states it and lays it out clearly for us. And the probable cause, I think, will fill in all those little holes when and if it's ever released. Yeah, Sensei, small town. All right, guys, we're going to start closing it out. We'll finish out in the chat. I want to thank everybody who joined, participated in the chat. Let's go ahead and close out that poll first. All right, there we go. Let's take a quick look at this. So the question that I put up for you guys was, do you believe that the search of the Wabash River was connected in any way with Kegan Klein and Richard Allen? 68% said yes. 18% said this all has to be connected. 7% said no. And 6% said no connection between Kegan and Richard Allen, in my opinion. So the majority of you say yes, there is a connection, and seem to agree with me on this matter. So once again, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me today, participating in the chat and the poll. If you could hit the like button. And if you're on the replay squad, leave a comment and we'll make sure to get back to you. Yeah, that's true, Brick. That's very possible. Yep, we definitely are. Brunch, good to see you. Possible, SP74.